Hello everybody, this is Richard from DraftaholicsAnonymous.com. What I have for you today is a primer for anyone who is interested in participating in a sealed competitive REL tournament. I highly recommend doing this because it's a great way to level up your game. It's also a lot of fun. And you've also got a chance to make top 8 and draft, which is what it's all about. So I'll be guiding you through the process, talking about how I go about it and what to expect from the tournament. I'll also be sharing some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. Now, if you would like to find one of these tournaments in your local area, you can go to our website at DraftaholicsAnonymous.com and you can go to the event finder. There you can put in your location and you can also filter by format and also type of tournament. So if you're particularly interested in participating in a GPT for a particular upcoming GP, or you're more interested in going to a PPTQ, you can filter by that too. So the first thing we'll need to do in one of these sort of tournaments is register our pool. We'll be given 6 booster packs and a deck checklist. We'll have 20 minutes to register our pool and then 30 minutes to build our deck. You'll be seated across from your registration partner. The way this will work is one of you will open their packs first and then the other will open their packs. You'll then swap pools for registration and then swap back for deck building. That's called the Sydney swap, and what it means is that the cards you'll be opening will be yours. So if you open any of those sweet masterpieces or a rare that you need for your standard deck, you don't have to worry about that going to some other player. That'll be yours. A judge will guide you through the steps of this process, so make sure you listen out for their instructions. So let's take a look at the deck checklist. So up the top you've got a place for the player registering the deck to write their name, and then for the player using the deck to write their name. That's where the judge will tell us to write our name. And then down the left here you've got a section for the basic lands, a section for the non-basic lands, then multicolored cards, and then masterpieces if you're good at opening packs. Then down the bottom you've got artifacts, and then a column for each color. You'll notice that there's a total column and a played column. When we're registering the pool, we'll write in the total column. When it comes to building the deck, we'll write in the played column. That's probably the most common thing that people mess up the first time, is writing the cards down in the wrong column. So let's get down to it and bust some packs. Now remove the basic land and the token. If you happen to find a foil land in there, leave that in the pack because it takes the place of a common. Now just count out the cards, showing them to your registration partner. Identify any rares or important cards. Make sure there are 14 cards in the pack. You can do this pretty quickly. So just thumb through the cards there and make sure the pack is the way it should be. Nice, Torrential Gearhulk. Now, I should probably mention at this point that you don't want to react to any of these cards that you're opening here. This is a silent process, so don't go shouting, yeah, Torrential Gearhulk, and disturb the peace and give away information, or advising the person across from you that they should be playing mono red vehicles or any other sound advice that you might have for them. People will occasionally talk during this part of it, but that should be kept to a minimum, and you certainly shouldn't be divulging any information about the cards that are being opened. So once we've finished opening the packs and your registration partner has finished opening their packs, we'll then swap our pools so that we can register each other's cards. For the purposes of this video, I'll just be registering the cards that I've opened so that you can see how that part of it works. So the first thing you're going to do is sort the cards by set, by colour, and then alphabetize them. Now I'm a massive Wooburg fan, so that's how I'm going to be ordering the piles. Because this is just a single set at the moment before Aether Revolt gets released, the first thing I'm going to do is sort by colour. Next I'll be alphabetizing. The reason that we do this is because it's much quicker to register that way. It's also quicker for your registration partner to verify that everything's been registered correctly. And it's also more accurate to register because it means that if you've got multiples of a card, they're all clumped together and you can just write the correct number down. Whereas if they're in a random order, you're going to end up undoubtedly writing the wrong number down, and then when you come across another copy, having to amend that again. So while I'm alphabetizing here, I'll just talk a little bit about the additional expectations of players at these tournaments. It's expected that if you're playing at one of these tournaments, you've got a good rules knowledge, that you'll play cleanly and quickly, and that you'll communicate effectively while doing so, and that if anything goes wrong in the game state, that you'll call a judge to fix it. So let's just go over those one at a time. So in terms of the rules knowledge, you don't have to be an expert, but you need to have a working rules knowledge and understand all the basic game mechanics to the extent where if there's something you don't understand, a judge can easily come around and explain that to you, and you can understand that with the rules knowledge that you have. You'll find playing at these tournaments, you'll pick up the additional rules knowledge fairly quickly. Now, with playing cleanly, there are a couple of aspects to this. If you've missed a trigger, for example, people aren't going to give you the opportunity to go back and put that trigger on the stack. Similarly, if you've announced a game action, like for example, if you move to your combat phase, you have moved out of your main phase and you can't go back and play lands and cast sorcery speed spells, for example. Part of this is good communication. Make sure your opponent knows what you are doing, keep it neat, make sure that your lands are where they're supposed to be, and you keep track of things on the battlefield. It's also a good idea to keep track of your life totals on a notepad, not using the 20-sided dice or anything like that that can be bumped. It's much easier to keep track of what's going on if you're noting it down on a pad and announce changes as they happen. Make sure that you've both got the same life totals as you move forward. That way, if any problems arise, there's a running record of the life total changes that have happened, and it's much easier to resolve discrepancies that way. Now, you're also expected to play reasonably quickly. This can be difficult if you're a less experienced player. It's not expected that you'll rush, but just make sure that you're being efficient with what you're doing, making decisions quickly. To assist with this, you can do things like plan out your next turn ahead of time. That way, you only need to reassess when major changes happen to the board state. It's also helpful to think about what-if type circumstances so that you know what decisions you're going to make should your opponent do particular things. So, for example, if my opponent attacks with these creatures, am I going to be blocking, and what am I going to be blocking with? Making some of those decisions ahead of time will make those plays much quicker when you come to do them. Now, the next thing that we'll have to do is mark the cards down on the sheet. As I mentioned before, there's a played column and a total column. In the registration process, we're going to be writing the numbers down in the total column, leaving the played column blank for the person that's going to be actually using the deck. You'll also notice that the columns are to the left, which seems obvious, but somebody always ends up writing the numbers down in the columns to the right instead. I like to tackle this 3 or 4 cards at a time, taking note of the cards that I have multiples of. Because it's alphabetical, I can just run down from top to bottom and note the numbers down. One of the reasons that we want to be playing quickly is that if we end up going to time and even drawing games, there's less equity in that for both players. In a draw situation, there's only 2 points of equity, whereas for a win, there's 3 points of equity for one of the players. The other reason that going to time is generally detrimental is that there are no breaks in these sorts of tournaments. If you're going to time a lot, you're not getting a chance to recuperate between games, and you're also not getting a chance to eat or anything like that. So while we're on that subject, let's talk about food. I'm a big proponent of packing easy to consume foods like muesli bars and up and go and that sort of thing, just in case I don't get a chance to get out and buy some food. A friend of mine actually packs leftovers for their lunch so that it eliminates the issue of not having enough time to go out and actually buy lunch. It's a really good idea. Now, another one of the expectations that I mentioned was if there's a problem with the game state, you're expected to call a judge to come and fix that. Don't go trying to fix that yourself. If you do that, it's more likely that you're going to cause more problems and make it more difficult for the judge to resolve it. On that topic, it's very commonplace in Magic the Gathering tournaments for judges to be called to fix things. It's not something that you should take offense to if a judge gets called. It's totally normal, and it's in fact expected that you'll call a judge to fix pretty much anything that's wrong. Now make sure that you've got 84 cards and 84 cards marked down on the sheet. Now at the end of this, if you've been efficient, you'll have a little bit of time left over. Here I just like to flick through the cards again and make a mental note of any instant speed tricks. Bombs, like that fumigate there. I also like to make a note of haste creatures because sometimes that becomes relevant. If you come up against your registration partner during the tournament, if you've made a mental note of all of the instant speed tricks, and particularly bombs like fumigate, it'll give you that little insight so that you can play around things more easily and sideboard in a more informed way. So that's it for registration, and if you have any additional tips for people, please feel free to leave a comment. In the next video, I will show you how I would go about building this pool into a deck. Remember, to find any competitive events in your local area, go to draftaholics.com and follow us on Twitter at draftaholicsmtg. Thanks for watching.